Hey everybody, this is Professor Triplet, and this is going to be a quick dive into navigating the viewport in Maya and just a few creation tools so that we can finish one of our first assignments in the class of geometric modeling. And I'm going to get going here, and I just want to say I am suffering from some kind of cold sickness, so bear with me if I start to go slower. Okay, enough of the silliness. Let's get going so that I can go to bed and relax. All right, so first of all, you open Maya. Typically, I believe modeling is the top function right here. So you have to have the modeling open. Okay, now this is Maya 2018, and I believe in our labs we have 2016 at the moment. There shouldn't be that much difference, especially for what we're doing here. It's not going to be that big of a difference. Okay, so let's just get into it. All right, so most of the time we're going to be doing poly modeling, but there are, we're going to be using some NURBS tools and stuff like that in some of the early assignments as well. But for this one, we're just going to learn the navigation and how to put some objects in here and move them around and stuff like that. So. All right, so first thing I did is I went and hit my poly modeling shelf tab, so that's open. You have the power to make your own shelves if you like, and you can put whatever you want on there. So if you're using a lot of tools all the time and you don't want to keep, hitting a hotkey or going to a menu or going to your marking menu, which we'll get into what all of those are if you don't know yet. You could actually just make a new tab up here. That is a different tutorial than this one, and you could certainly look that up on YouTube. I'm sure there's tons of tutorials on how to make your own shelf tabs and add stuff to it. But the first thing I want to do is just say, how do you rotate? So let's put an object in the scene first. So I'm just going to go ahead and left click on here, and there we go. We've got a box in the scene. And what changed? Okay, well, we have this thing right here called an attribute editor, and because now we have this cube selected, there's a bunch of attributes that are tied to the cube, and we can roll these out and read all these. And at this point in time, we don't really need to look at these, but in the future you might. But for right now, we're just going to say, hey, how do we see this cube? How do we rotate it, or rotate the scene around it? So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to hit F on my keyboard. Now, nothing happened, but let me go ahead and just move off a little bit like this. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. But I'm going to hit F again. And, oh, look what happened. So F is another way of saying frame. So it's basically going to frame whatever object you have selected. So if I click off of here and click back on, then you can see I have it selected. And if I hit F, it will frame it. So it just actually framed it a little bit closer by hitting F. Okay, so now what am I doing? I'm rotating. Okay, how do I do that? I'm holding Alt down on the keyboard, and I'm left clicking, and I'm dragging around. And that's how you rotate. Very simple. And while you still have Alt down, if you right click and you drag back and forth or up and down, doesn't matter which way you want to do it, you actually can zoom. Okay, well, let's say I'm way over here. And I say, I'm going to zoom, but I want to zoom in over here, but it's getting wonky. Hit F. Now you can zoom in and out much better. And when you hit F, it centers around the object you have selected. So the tumbling of the viewport will go around the object you have selected. So now we've just learned how to rotate, and we've learned how to zoom in and out. Okay, another way you could zoom in and out is just by rolling your mouse wheel. So if you are working on a computer that doesn't have a mouse wheel, you will have to look up how to do that. It's actually quite tricky. And if you're on a Mac, I don't know if all Macs use mouse wheels now, but if you don't, you can just pan without middle mouse, and you can put on Mac like that, and then you can look that up. Unfortunately, I don't have a Mac and I don't use it, so I can't really instruct you in that. That would have to be somebody else. So anyway, let's go forward. Holding Alt and holding down your middle mouse button will allow you to move back and forth and pan. So basically that's what I did in the beginning when I moved off of the cube line of sight, and then I hit F, and then I'm back in. Okay, so what I'm actually moving around right now is actually a camera. So it's basically the perspective view at this point, but if I was to open up my outliner, which is this little button right here, and it popped up over there for some reason. In the past it was over here, which I can pull over like so, and you can see that there's these cameras right here in the scene. The outliner basically is like a organization tool for seeing everything in your scene and selecting stuff in your scene, so you don't have to like literally select it in here. You could just select it in the outliner. But anyway, so you can see we're using the perspective camera right now. I can change my views. Perspective is right here. If you want an orthographic view, like the front view, you can click on that, and then you could, get closer, see your object. You can go side view. Of course, this all looks the same because it's all just a cube. Now, so here's a trick. If you want to see all 4 views at once, you can see there's a panel layout right here. You just click on that, and then you can see all of them at once. And Maya's got a neat trick that whatever view I have my mouse over, if I tap my spacebar, it actually maximizes that view. So now I can tap it back again, tap it over the top view, tap it back again, and you can see right here in the bottom, it says top Y, it says perspective X, or side X, and front Z. Okay, I'm going to turn my outliner off so we can get more real estate here. Okay, so I do most of my work in the perspective view, but sometimes you need to line things up or just look at the relationship between things from a top-down view or left to right or whatever. I definitely use the other views too. So it's important to know you can just tap your space bar and get to this, or come over here and click on this and get to your 4 views. So good things to know. All right, what's next on the agenda? All right, we are going to talk about how to move this object. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit W on my keyboard. And if you noticed, this little move tool highlighted, I almost always use my key. And the keys is actually, there's a kind of a shortcut thing, we call it QWERTY. So QWERT. Y, I guess. I don't use the T and Y typically, but the Q is for selection. So if I hit Q, it's my select tool. If I hit W, it's my move tool. If I hit E, it's my rotate tool. And I hit R, it's my scale tool. Most 3D programs have the same setup with this. The only one I know that is different at the moment is Houdini, and we are going to look a little Houdini. And actually ZBrush is a little bit different too, but ZBrush is kind of a whole other beast. Let me go ahead and hit 1 again. Sorry, not 1, Q. And so if I just wanted to be able to select things and not worry about moving them on accident, you can use your select tool. And this actually, you have a couple different selections. So you have a lasso select tool, so you can select things in a lasso style. And then you also have a paint select tool. And this actually can come really in handy when you have a lot of polygons and you can turn on your paint selection. And you can actually change your brush size, which we're not going to go into right now. But so you can go ahead and paint a selection of polygons or whatever. And that's actually very convenient. So hey, this is a little addendum. I noticed when I watched the video at the end that I hit the paint selection tool and it brought me into component mode, which means you can select like vertices and edges and stuff like that. And then I didn't say how to get out of that. So I wanted to throw this in here really quick if you went and followed along. So first thing to do is just hit the select button again, or hit Q. I think it should switch to it. Q, yeah, it'll switch to it. And then just hit F8 on your keyboard and it'll take you back to your object mode, which is like your top level for selecting the object. So now you can go ahead and continue on with the tutorial. Go back to my object mode. So right now, got my move tool. I can move in these 3 different directions, or I can move locked into the, like let's, in this case it's the Y and the Z plane, or you can do the Z and X plane, or of course the X and Y plane. So that's what these little boxes are for. Now, you also have this center box. What that center box does is it moves based on your viewport. So basically my camera facing this box, if I go and start moving it through this, it's basically like looking at my camera and saying wherever the camera is directly pointing, it's going to move on the perpendicular to that plane. Okay, so that's what that little box is for. So we would call that screen space. So we're moving in screen space. All right, so that's a good introduction to how to move stuff. What about rotate? So I'm going to go ahead and hit E on my keyboard, and I'm going to start turning this like that. So all I have to do is put the handle on these different axes, and I can rotate. Now you can see there's also this other circle that's outside of everything, and that's just like the center box on the move tool. This rotates based on screen space. Okay, now what I haven't showed is I haven't showed the channel box yet, and I want to show that now because I want you to see what's going on here. So you see I have over here in the channel box on the right side, I have a translate X, translate Y, translate Z. Okay, see this is where I moved this in world space. If I click in the top one and drag down and highlight all of these and type 0 in, it'll move the center of the box back to the 0 point in the 3D world. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the rotate. So I'm just going to click in here, I got to click outside of it, click and drag, and then I'm just going to hit 0. And now you can see the box is completely rotated and moved back to its original position. Now I can change where the original position is on this box, but that's for a different tutorial. But as long as we haven't messed with where the original position is, if you zero out all of these and put 1 on all the scales, then basically the box will go back to its default size that it started at. Okay, so scaling. Let's talk about scaling for a second here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit R on my keyboard for scale. And scaling looks a lot like the move tool. In this case, we're going to grab the middle one first, and I'm just going to scale it up. Now, if you're noticing the channel box, if you look over on the right, you can see it's moving, or it's changing numbers. So I'm basically just scaling this up in the world space, and it's, and now I'm below actually 1. So I'm at 8, or 0.865, and I can go ahead and just change that back to 1. So now it's back at its original scale. So what do these handles do? Well, this is the X handle. So basically, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's these little crosshairs down here. The X direction, the Y direction, the Z direction coordinate with most of the handles. So anytime you see a handle, if it's red, that means that's going to be the X. So you can scale on just the X direction, you can scale on just the Y, and you can scale just on the Z. Okay, and you can see here now, the scale is non-uniform. It's not all 2.001 or 011. It's different numbers. So if I wanted to get it back to where I wanted, I can just turn it to that. Okay, so that's how you move, rotate, and scale. And now you're on your way to be able to block out a scene.